Hi grade 11s, we have finally arrived at the 2-point perspective drawing. So this, I would assume now, is going to be my final design which I have as a floor plan, and I want to show you basically as step 1, before we actually get to the 2-point perspective, is how to set up a blank sheet of paper which you have. At the moment the paper has a border around it, and you have set it up by using your T-square and lining it up with one of the title bar lines at the bottom. So now it's nice and set up, ready to start. So the first thing that I need to do is to create your picture plane, which is somewhere here. Remember, you are given these items in your activities, but now during the pack you will have to set it up yourself. So we'll have to create our own picture plane, our own ground line, and we will have to set up the horizon line as well as finding the stationary point. So I'm going to give you dimensions which you need to follow in terms of setting up that specific grid. So if we look at our picture plane, we are going to measure a certain distance from the border. So that distance is going to be 160 millimeters, which is there, and I'm going to mark it at 0. So you can see it's quite low, and you will see the reason why I have it that low a little bit later on when I set up the floor plan on here, which is going to be tilted. So I'm going to draw a line like that there with my T-square. Remember, it is 160 millimeters from the border down, and that I'm going to label as my picture plane there. Then learners, I'm going to use my top title bar line as my ground line, and I'm going to label it as GL there. And then above the GL, I'm going to measure 20, which is right there, and I'm going to draw a line a little bit here and a little bit there. And that line will be labeled my HL, which is my horizon line. Then I'm going to measure from this side of my border of my page 90 millimeters, which I'm going to mark right there. And that's going to be the point which is going to touch my picture plane. And I am going to project that line down onto my ground line here and slightly below that, and on the ground line I'm going to dot that, and I'm going to label that as my SP, which is my stationary point. So that's going to be my SP, and it's going to be the line where I'm going to start my drawing. Then learners, I will go back to my final design, and you know for a fact that that width there is 50 meters, which is going to be scaled down to 1:100, which we have here. So we're going to apply the same scale for our 2-point perspective. So that is going to be 150 millimeters, and this is going to be 250 millimeters along my length. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt that on an angle of 60 degrees like that, with this point here touching my picture plane. So that's going to be like 30, and this side is going to be my 60. Just keep in mind that I will only have sight of this side here and this side over here. I will not have sight of this one here and that side at the back there. So it's important for me just to draw this part and that part and maybe a slight return, and perhaps to find the center of that which will serve as my apex of my roof. Let's do that very quickly. So I'm going to remove that, and as I mentioned, this side from that specific point there, which I measured 90 from the border, I'm going to draw a line like that there and maybe extend it a little further. And on that line I'm going to have 20 5 millimeters measured. So that's what I'm going to do. 25 is going to be right there. And then I'm going to draw an angle of 60 along that side, of which I'm going to measure 15 millimeters. So that's my 15 over there, and I'm going to mark it clearly at 0 there. I'm also going to, while I'm at it, I'm also going to measure half of 15, which is going to be 7.5 or 75, because that's going to be my apex of my roof. And then I'm going to return that way. I'm going to return this up here, and it doesn't matter whether it goes over my border. And then I'm going to have that right there. So you will find that this goes slightly off my page there. But what I need is that side and this side and that side and my apex, which is mostly important. I will then, of course, use my distances here, measure here to find all my windows and my doors which I have on this side here. So if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks, it will be 60 measured from here, and then 40 for the 4 blocks of my window, 1 block which is 10 millimeters, 2 blocks for my door, and that's how I'm going to add my windows and my door. So just to show you what I'm talking about, if you have windows on this side here, I'm going to measure 6 blocks. There's going to be a marker for my 6, and then I'm going to have 4 blocks, and that's going to be my window there, and then I'm going to have a 1 block gap of 10 millimeters, and then my door will be 20, and will split over there, and then again I will have 1 block opening, and I will have another window of 40, which is 4 meters, and then I will have 30 there and another window of 20 like that there. So I will clearly mark it. For example, I'm going to mark it clearly like that there, like that there, so that I know the positions of my window and door. And I'm even going to label it. So these two are going to be the same. So I'm going to label that W1, and that's going to be W1, window 1. That's going to be my door, so I'm going to say door. That is going to be wall, and that's going to be window 2. So window 2, window 1, and door. And those are going to be my fixtures on this side here. My door and window openings on this side here. There is basically nothing for me on this side, but if you have windows here, you need to put them in as well. You will also pick up that I'm not actually darkening that, because that is basically just a construction which I need to be able to complete my 2-point perspective. So what I need on this side here, learners, is also going to be my heights, and that's going to be my height of my walls and my height of my roof, as well as the height of my window and my door, as well as the drop of the window as well. So I am, however, just going to draw half of my building on this side because of space limitations. So what I have here is 75, and I'm going to measure a 75 distance in that corner there, as you can see. I'm going to draw this line up like that, and this line up as well, like that. Remember, this is my ground line, and then I'm going to measure up from the ground line 40 millimeters. I'm going to mark it that side and this side, and then I'm going to draw an angle here of 30 degrees like that there, which will strike over here. That will now go down that way. Right, so I'm basically just drawing one side of my building, to be able to create the heights. That's the height of my apex of my roof, which is that point over there. That's the height of my wall, which is that point over there. And then, and just keep in mind, learners, that this is at an angle of 30 degrees here, which I'm going to put in for you. Above this level of my ground, I'm also going to measure 30. And that's going to be my height of my door. And then, of course, I'm going to have a drop for my window, which I can decide how far down that window drop must be. I'm going to do that drop round about there. So I'm going to just make a 10 millimeter drop like that there. So that's the drop of my window. That is going to be the height of my window and my door. So now we are ready to start the 2-point perspective drawing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my vanishing points. I'm going to clearly mark that left and right like we've done in our activities. And then I'm going to basically construct this drawing to a 2-point perspective drawing, adding my windows and my doors. And then eventually what I will do is I will enhance my drawing by adding color. Let's start. learners, that concludes the two-point perspective of our PAT. What you need to do now is you need to take your phone, your cell phone, and take a nice picture of only that part there. And then, once you have the picture, you will be able to email that picture to yourself and then import that specific picture here onto your cover page, which is the picture that's required on your cover page.